Welcome to Murfreesboro Storytellers. Our program this month is originating from Oakland's Park on the reservation of the Oakland's Mansion here in downtown Murfreesboro. And we're pleased to have as our special guest our new police chief for Murfreesboro, Karl Durr.
Well, thank you for having me on.
Karl, welcome, and welcome to the community.
Well, thank you. It's great being here. What a lovely day.
Now, are you a native of Florida?
Actually, I'm a native of North Carolina.
Okay. I know you spent a lot of your life in Florida.
Yes. Yeah, I was born in Charlotte, and then my dad was in the military, and we moved down to South Florida, and that's where I spent most of my life.
Coming here from Eugene, Oregon, I believe. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experience, Karl. Now, you've had most of your law enforcement experience in Florida, if I understand it.
Yeah,
I had 32 years.
Well, yeah, I have 32 years of total law enforcement, but my first 28 years was in South Florida. I started off with a small municipal police department. It's large now in today's age, and then I went to the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, where I spent 25 years there, and I went up through the ranks and was a major when I left there.
Okay.
And it was about 4,000 employees there.
As a major, what were your responsibilities?
I was in charge of Homeland Security, so I worked with the various federal partners and worked with UASI and under SHISCAP funds, and we were looking at as a regional project of protecting South Florida, and we actually installed a coastal radar system down there. So it's some pretty neat work. I had a fusion center under me, so it was quite interesting, and really loved the job. But you know, as Florida changed, and I wanted to change, you know, with having young kids.
Sure. I remember President Bush being in Florida reading to a group of kids in a school the day of the Twin Tower attack. Were you on hand for any of that in Florida?
No, oddly enough, I was assigned to the airport.
Okay.
We have an airport down there, international airport, and it's one of those things you can always remember where you're at on 9/11.
I'm sure everybody can.
And we were in the process of merging with the city, and I got the phone call, and I had to go back to the airport, and they started landing all the airplanes. So it was a really weird experience. It's still, I don't know how to explain it, to sit there and watch all these planes come down and trying to find places to park them, because South Florida is a huge air traffic area. So,
what was the phone call as you go? What did they tell you?
They just told me that there's a national situation and I needed to respond back to my original duty, and we're going to be on 12-hour shifts. So.
And from there, in Florida, as far as your law enforcement experience, you went to Oregon. Is that correct? Or?
Yes. So I went to. So I had wanted to get out of South Florida.
Okay. You mentioned that Florida changed, so.
Yeah, you know, from when I grew up as a kid, you know, the demographics of Florida and the crime that was down there.
Okay.
I just didn't think it was an environment I wanted to bring my children up.
Okay.
I have 2 small kids, and I also wanted to get back into municipal policing because I wanted to be a police chief. And being in a sheriff's office, it's not easy to transfer from that back into municipal policing. So, and I always loved the Pacific Northwest. So I looked for jobs where I could start getting my municipal policing to attain my goal as being a police chief, and also that was a good quality of life move for my kids. And
so you went from there then to Eugene, Oregon.
Then I went to Eugene, Oregon. Yeah.
Tell me about your work there. Now, how many years were you in Eugene?
I was there for 3.5 years.
3.5 years, almost 4. Okay.
Which is very similar. It had a college town.
Okay.
With the University of Oregon, and I ran for the police department. I ran the football operations for security for the police department there. So I got to see Marcus Mariota play for 3 years at the stadium.
My word, yeah.
So, and then Eugene is a great town. The Northwest is a great lifestyle. I enjoyed snow skiing. That's one of my hobbies. So I was 2 hours away from great skiing, and I was 40 minutes away from the coast.
Oh, ideal.
Yeah, so it's a beautiful coastline and everything. And you know, the city's a great city. But you know, my wife and I, we said, hey, we're not West Coasters. We belong back on the East Coast. This is where our friends are. And Tennessee was a place that I had almost bought property 15, 16 years ago in Franklin, a couple acres.
You told me that earlier.
Yeah, I know, and everybody always tells me it's the biggest mistake I ever made. So when Murfreesboro, when the job posted up, and I felt I'd grown in my capacity to be able to step into the role of a police chief somewhere, when I looked at it, and my wife looked at it, we looked at it from 2 different angles, and we thought this would be the right spot for not only for me as a profession, but more importantly for us as a family.
What was your rank and your position there in Eugene?
I was the assistant chief.
Assistant chief.
Yeah.
And your duties encompassed?
I was in charge of internal affairs to training. I had patrol operations, and we changed some things up. But I would basically, answered the chief of police and ran a lot of the internal operations.
And how large a department did you have?
It was roughly about 320 people sworn.
Okay. All right.
So very similar to the city, but they had less police officers. They only had 189 police officers, and there was a population of 170,000, where here we have roughly 240 police officers for a population of 120,000. So the resources out there, which were far more scarce.
Mm-hmm. So you learned about the opening in Murfreesboro with Glenn Chrisman's retirement, and that led you to apply, I presume.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I saw that, and I did some research before I applied. Like I said, my wife and I took a two-pronged approach. She looked at it from the community point, the education for our kids, and the social activities and everything else. And I took a look at it from the police department point of view, and as a professional. And I also looked at the quality of life things. So.
Where's your wife from originally?
She's from Denmark.
Oh my word.
Yeah, so she's Danish, and in fact, next month she's going back to go visit her mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, she still has family there, obviously, then.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
So you've got an international marriage then.
Yes.
That's great. International family. Wonderful.
Or some people would say that nobody in the U.S. would marry me.
I'm sure that's not true. All right, so you applied and interviewed for the job in Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Yeah, I was fortunate to be selected, and I'm really happy to be here. It's I really, I think Chief Chrisman really left a good legacy and left a great agency.
That he did.
I'm really impressed with the quality of officers, the quality of services that we provide. That's one of the things I was trying to change out in Eugene, and what I see going on with national policing issues is, I think a while ago there was a thing that was brought into police departments, was called CompStat, and CompStat was looking at crime and data and trying to lower crime.
Okay.
But I think what happened in law enforcement is we started focusing too much on data and forgot about the people.
That can happen.
And I think that's why you're seeing nationally, some of the issues that we're seeing nationally is because they got away from community policing and were more involved in stopping crime and pushing crime out. And I think Murfreesboro, we didn't go that route, and we stayed with the community-based policing. And I think looking at the work that the officers do, they're good community officers. I mean, I had yesterday I was stopping to get coffee, and one of the employees grabbed me and said, "Hey, I want to just thank you. Two of your officers were at an accident scene and went well above and beyond what they were supposed to do. Really helped me out and gave me some more particulars. But these officers could have just taken the report and gone on their way, but they took the time and out to help a member of the community. And I hear story after story like this, so I'm really proud of the work that these officers do. And it's unfortunate that that doesn't get out in the community."
Yes,
Yeah.
that's wonderful to hear those kinds of stories, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Makes you proud of your folks.
Yeah.
What did you see needed to be done as far as this community's police department? Any changes, any improvements, additions? Where do you see there was a pressing need, if there is one?
Well, I think the technology needs to be improved. We have it in place, but we need to sync it up, and we need to push it forward and go to the next level. I think one of our biggest things is to get the computers in our cars fixed, and to get our field-based, what we call field-based reporting, for the officers to be able to electronically do all the reports in the car, because we're still on a paper-based system. So,
my word.
Yeah, and we're one of the few agencies here in Tennessee are that way. But the good thing is that the groundwork and cement's already been laid, that we have the funding to go forward, and the next budget cycle we'll be pushing forward with that. So those are already in place. So those are the things that we have to do to really help improve the services that we provide.
And that'll be one of the things, I guess, that you'll particularly have done with your new headquarters building. Have that technology in place.
Yeah, I want it in place before.
Well, I understand that.
Yeah. So that goes along with that. The other problem that goes behind that too is we have a lot of records that are paper.
Oh boy.
That dates. Yeah, we have
Takes a lot of
warehouse.
space.
Yeah, so we also have a scanning project, because kind of my goal is that I set forward in the challenge. I said is I don't want to move any boxes to the new police department. And,
Excellent, yeah.
And so we're working on a scanning project, so by the time we move in the police department, we'll get all those records done electronically.
You mentioned the vehicles, the electronics in the vehicles. How many vehicles do you actually have in the department?
Oh, you're stumping me on that one. I have no idea.
That's all right.
Yeah, I
Okay.
have, because we have a take-home car program, and I've never sat down to take a look at actually exactly how many cars we have. And I do know from one of the things that I've done also, I haven't completed it yet, but I'm sitting down with every employee, and for 15 minutes, and I'm talking to them. I'm asking them, what are the 3 things that you like about the police department? What are 3 things that you would like that need improvement? And if you're the police chief, what's the one thing you would change? And so one of the things that keeps coming up is our cars. So we know there's a shortage. We have a shortage of cars, and because of funding a while ago that we didn't buy cars, and what happens now, you have to play catch up. So we are in need of increasing our fleet size. But if you're asking me the number, I don't know. But
that's fine. But
that's
something
something
you need. So.
And so that goes back in line. What are those things that we need to focus on? Some of that is getting the right tools for our officers and increasing some of our cars too.
What else did you learn in those interviews that needs to be done, or employees feel need to be changed?
I think well, when you asked me that first question though, really is before the change, they were really proud of the people they work with.
That's wonderful.
So I would say the top 3 things that they say that they like is they like the city itself, they love the department, and the camaraderie they share in working together and doing it. So that I think that speaks loudly to the quality of the people that we have.
Yeah, that's so important. You are blessed to have inherited this fine department coming in to the community.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And the community itself. I mean, so they talk about the community, how great it is to work in Murfreesboro, and they really appreciate it.
And the size of your departments, how many people?
Well, it's roughly about 320 total with civilians, and then there's roughly 240 police officers.
Okay, all right. So it's a large number of people to work with.
Yeah, and if we look at it, because everybody talks about how Murfreesboro is growing, and they keep thinking it's a small agency. There's only 250 police departments throughout the country that are greater than 200. Is I think one of the stats that I looked at.
So we're not one of those 250 then?
Yeah, we're one of those 250, so we're not just a small city and a small agency.
How has law enforcement itself generally changed over the years since during your 32 years of service?
Well, number one, I think it's a far more complex job today than when I started, because we asked our officers, okay, you have to be able to type, you have to be able to talk on the radio, drive a car, answer your cell phone, so and also have an in-car video going. The thought I had an in-car video when I was officer, I wouldn't even think of something like that. Oh, I'm sure. And so I think it's a much more technically challenged than what it is, but I think some of the basics are the same. I was brought up in a community policing philosophy, and that's one of those things I've just always embraced throughout the years. I've seen different trends come and go, and I think policing today is a profession compared to when I first started into it. We're having people that are highly educated coming into the field, and we're providing a lot of advanced training.
That's good.
And that's one of the things that we also do very well in the agency is the amount of training we provide to our officers to make them skilled to provide the services.
Ongoing.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's
what is the educational requirement for joining the department as an officer?
Well, it's having high school or equivalent GED.
Okay.
There's some agencies that have moved forward towards a 2-year degree, but I think you start running into some hiring difficulties and things like that. But it's how do you incentivize for people to get more specialized training while they're in the agency? And that's something that we really provide, and that we really, if you're in a specialized unit, you're getting specialized training so that you can do that job better. And even as patrol officers, we're providing general training in areas of focus that they're interested in to help them out.
Talk about the drug problem generally, not so much Murfreesboro, but or anything you want to make comment. Is this a growing situation with law enforcement all across the country?
Well, I'll refer back to some time I had in Palm Beach County when I was down there, and I was a narcotics captain.
Okay.
Now I did that job for 8 years, and I know when I stepped into that job, because when I was an agent, I call myself a narclet back then.
Okay.
You know, when we were little agents, and you know, we dealt with crack cocaine, marijuana, cocaine, and things, especially being in South Florida. And so when I came back into that job as a commander, I thought I would be facing the same thing. And then I started facing phone calls of parents about how their children had died from drug overdoses and prescription drugs. And then my agents were bringing back pills and buying pills on the street. And I was just flabbergasted. And this is not what I anticipated. So I had to reevaluate, and talking to a lot of parents and things like that. So the pharmaceutical problems that we were facing, here we are, you know, drugs that we're legally making, dispensing, and they're being used for illicit purposes.
Sure.
And so that was, to me, that was indicative of the type of problems and addiction problems that we have throughout the United States. You know, why do we consume a majority of the world's cocaine supply? I think one of the figures I saw is that we consume 70% of the world's cocaine, but we definitely don't have 70% of the population.
As a country.
As a country.
That is alarming.
Yeah, so, you know, I think there's a lot of social issues throughout the country, and we have to ask ourselves, why are we using so many drugs? But again, going back to the prescription, one of the things that we realized when we had all the pain clinics and stuff down there, we realized as we cracked down on this, that the demand for the opiates would not go away, and we knew heroin would start coming into play. And I think that's what we're seeing today as we start cracking down on prescription painkillers, that heroin is now coming in its place.
Well, thank you for bringing us up to date on the drug problem nationally, and hopefully we're having in general control here in this community, not being a major factor in law enforcement every day.
Yeah, we're not seeing, and let's knock on wood, we're not seeing the overdose deaths from heroin and things like that, because that's why, you know, nationally there's discussion about bringing Narcan into police cars to try to revive people from those overdose. That's how much of an epidemic it's become nationally. So, and you know, we have a good relationship, and we have a great fire department, and so they have a quick response time. So they're pretty well equipped to handle those type of situations.
And being on the road, so to speak, from Florida to Chicago, that's always been quoted as a trafficking route that is used by the drug dealers.
Well, yeah, especially in the olden times, but now with Mexico being in the, they've started using a distribution system similar to UPS, where they have hubs.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Yes, yeah, they're very sophisticated in the way they dispense, and they use various cities that are hubs where they transport the illicit drugs, whether it be meth or heroin. So.
Where would the closest hub be, to your knowledge?
I'd give you outdated information.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
I just didn't realize that was it. You might know it though, that they've become that sophisticated as well.
Yeah, I mean, they actually mirrored, you know, a UPS distribution system. So they're clever.
No doubt. Let's talk about Karl a little bit more personally. And you, a native of North Carolina, you said, I believe, born in North Carolina.
Yeah, I only lived there for a year, so I don't remember too much. But I spent some college time up in Greensboro for a year, and then went back down to Florida and became a police officer. But yeah, I grew up in southeast Florida, in a town called Boca Raton, just north of Miami. I lived in Miami and then moved up to Boca Raton.
Talk about your education.
Yep. Well, so I went to Greensboro College, and then I decided college wasn't for me, and came back home.
Was that in North Carolina?
That was in North Carolina, yeah. And came back home, and I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I had gone to college thinking I was going to be into computer technology, and that's what I studied. And then I applied for the police department at the age of 19. And
sound like some of your personnel are working.
And at the age of 19, I became a police officer. In fact, you had to be 21 to have a gun. And so my mom had to go buy my gun and bullets for me.
Oh my goodness. Interesting. Okay.
Yes.
So from there, other educational opportunities you've taken advantage of?
Yeah, so what I do...
not necessarily a degree program, but any other program?
Oh yeah, I went through various schools. I mean, one of the first things I focused on was my formal education, and I went back to school slowly at night and in daytime, and I got my AA degree, then I got my BA degree, and then I finally got my master's.
Oh, okay.
And then I went and I did some various level formal law enforcement supervisory education. I went to Southern Police Institute in Louisville, Kentucky, I went to Harvard Kennedy School of Government, Senior Executives and Fellowship. I went to Perf Senior Management Institute of Police. So those are some of my former, and then I went to a drug unit commander school. So I've had various forms of education, and probably one of the neat ones was going to a bomb unit commander school.
Tell us more about that.
Oh, that was, it was extremely educational, because when I took over as a major of Homeland Security, the bomb unit came under me, and I knew I always wanted to stay away from bombs.
Oh, absolutely.
But it was to understand the philosophy of it, and really where the bomb units were going nationally, and how they're integrating those units with SWATs because of all the robotics and everything else like that. So watching how they talked about how bomb teams need to integrate with SWAT teams, because we want to reduce exposure of SWAT officers on doing entries and stuff into the house. So the use of robots and breaching doors and doing things like that will minimize the risk to not only the police officers, but to also the people inside. So we're not forcing a combative situation where maybe we can de-escalate a different situation. So I thought that was really educational. And I think one of the other, it wasn't formal education, but one of the other neat things that I got to do was through the Homeland Security Group is they sent me to Israel for 10 days. Mm-hmm. And we got to go behind the scenes of the various sections of the security, whether it be in downtown Jerusalem, the security system they had there up in the Golan Heights. We also went to Ben Gurion Airport and saw the security measures and looking at how the ways we could improve our own critical infrastructure that we had in the county. At the same time, we spoke to them about community policing. So it was a mutual exchange, and I thought it was a wonderful program.
So we talk about terrorism or potential terrorism, so you can be prepared to overcome anything of that type, right?
Exactly, and one of the things that I realized that we don't want to become a state such as that, because there is so much terrorism, and really the more terrorism there is, and the more we expect the government to do something, the more we lose our rights as citizens, because we expect the government to do something. And the police there have a tough job, because they're stopping a lot of people because of the amount of bombings they had. In fact, there was a bombing 2 days before we got there in Tel Aviv. So for me it was a little unnerving.
I'm sure, but nothing unusual over there, unfortunately.
Yeah,
it seems.
Yeah, it was. But what was remarkable though, by the time we left, they took us back to that restaurant, and it was up and running, and there was a line that was 2 hours long for people, because they demonstrate that you might hurt us, but you're not gonna destroy our country.
Yeah, that's a good message to send then. Yeah. And your personnel, I think you referred to it earlier, they also have the opportunity for many educational programs while they're serving, do they not, as police department members? Yeah,
we have our annual in-service training that we figure out in a year what kind of training do we need, basic training do we need to provide to our officers, and also we have to meet post standards, which are the state standards, to make sure we provide them the education there. But again, then we have money set aside for specific schools that they can select to go to. And what's nice about going to outside schools is they're usually schools that are current trends that are occurring within law enforcement. There's such a long list of them, I don't even know where to start. Yeah. But we send our sergeants and lieutenants and captains to management schools like Northwestern.
Oh, that's great.
We send them to the FBI National Academy. Yeah. So that we start with, we give them that leadership training. But again, it goes all the way down to the officer, because we want highly trained officers here to serve the community of Murfreesboro.
Talk a little bit more about your family. Now, we mentioned your wife is from Denmark, and you have 2 children, and their ages are?
They're, he's 7. The youngest one is 7, but he'll be 8 here in the end of the month. Okay. I think he's going on 10. And our other son is 12. So, I think it was 4 years ago that we left Florida, so they were 4 and 8 at the time. So, they've been here now about 10 days, and it is a little bit warmer here than it is in Oregon.
What is the climate like in Oregon this time of year?
Or
summer?
Yeah, where I was at in the Willamette Valley, it would get hot a few days out of the year.
Hot?
Yeah, hot would be like, 90 degrees, but not the humidity. Yeah, it'd be hot.
All right. Yeah,
and the night times there'd be a 40 degree differential in temperature. So, But the wintertime is very much similar here because it was in a valley. So we didn't have the extreme colds, even though they were over in the Cascade Mountains 2 hours away. So, you know, it was a beautiful, beautiful temperature. The only thing is it was a little bit rainy. They say it's rainy, and I'm going, well, all you need to do is go to the south and understand what real rain is. You know, it floods when it rains here. It's kind of like a light drizzle in the Pacific Northwest. But it was a great lifestyle out there. We really had a lot of fun and a lot of outdoor activities, and it's something that we continue doing here. You know, both of my boys, they play soccer.
Oh, good.
And I've come to understand Murfreesboro is a great soccer town.
Has become that, you know, growing up, as I did many years ago, we didn't know what soccer was all about.
Yeah.
It's amazing the transition that's happened over the years.
Yeah, and you know, what's nice about Murfreesboro too, that was one of the things that we looked at, we're so close to Nashville. And but yet we're not in Nashville. So before in Eugene, if we wanted to, because we're both kind of city people, and we would have to drive to Portland, which was 2.5 hours away. But after one day, we're like, okay, let's get back. Let's get back to Eugene. You know, here we can drive for the day, go down to Nashville, and then we can be back home at night.
Well, you have some of the attributes of Nashville, and yet you're very close and get right back home, as opposed to in years gone by, we had to go to Nashville for a lot of things that we have actually right here now today.
No, absolutely. And you know, both of my boys love hockey, so I'm looking forward to taking the Predators game this next season. I'm going to take them down to a Titans game. So we're looking forward to doing some of those things, and then you know, we went out and we're looking forward to going out and seeing some concerts and plays, and you know, different aspects of the things that the city offers, and also Murfreesboro too.
As we speak, you were talking about building a home in the Blackman area, I believe. So your boys will be going to Blackman to school then, with that in mind.
Yeah, they'll be going to Blackman Middle School, and yeah. So you know, my wife was one of the mandates. She says, I want to build a house, and yeah. So to her, it's symbolic that we're pouring the concrete and foundation for our family to bring our kids up and put them through school and see them off to college.
In the time remaining, Karl, what would be any one thing that you would think would be the biggest need for the department to be able to continue to keep up with the growth and the development of our community? What about traffic? We didn't mention that.
Oh gosh, yeah, traffic. It's well, you know, I'm driving around town, and I see it's an increased traffic, and that's one of the things that we're looking at is traffic crash data.
Okay.
And because you know, a lot of times, you know, people, they look at the officers out there and they go, oh, why are they running radar? Why, you know, shouldn't they be doing something else fighting crime? But if you think about how much damage is one traffic crash?
Oh, me, yes.
And somebody getting injured, hurt, sent to the hospital. If they don't have insurance, it draws on our medical issues and costs and everything. So traffic crashes are very costly to the community, and also it's saving lives. So we're looking to reduce the number of our crashes, and that's one of our efforts. So you know, traffic's one of those things. You know, I mean, I see that they're building. You know, they're trying to improve intersections and things like that, trying to stay ahead of what's going on. I think the other thing is that we need to make sure that as an agency, we need to reflect the community we serve. So we have to take a look and see what diversity brings with us with growth, because when more people come to Murfreesboro, you know, the diversity is going to constantly change.
Right.
And so we've got to constantly be looking to see what people are coming in here so that we can reflect that.
Karl, thank you very much. Welcome to Murfreesboro Storytellers, but more importantly, welcome to Murfreesboro with your family from Eugene, Oregon, now settled here. And we wish you every success in your serving the Murfreesboro Police Department.
Well, thank you very much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Karl Durr, our newly appointed Chief of the Murfreesboro Police Department, as our special guest on Murfreesboro Storytellers.